All right, what's up, everybody? So glad you are here. Welcome to Village Youth Live. We are pumped to be coming in live tonight to hang out with you all. We're going to play an interesting, sweet game. There's a little hint for you that we played last week, but this is round two, and we have all new options. We're going to see how that goes. And then we're going to talk about things going on in the world and what following Jesus looks like back in the Bible time and now, and how we can actually learn from both of those and what that looks like to follow Jesus. So we're really excited about both of those things, and I'm really pumped that you guys are joining us. Make sure to subscribe so you always know when we go live, and feel free to share this with a friend or two that you want to join you on this to challenge you to the game. I think that would be a lot of fun as well. While we were waiting for everybody to jump on, I'm curious, we asked, what has been the best part of your summer? And we already have one answer, swimming is the best part. So that makes sense. I was able to get into one swimming pool so far, and that was for baptisms, which we showed last week. And it was awesome. I'm not going to lie. I miss swimming pools. So hopefully you guys get the opportunity this summer to safely swim and have a lot of fun in the process. But I'm curious, what is your favorite part of summer? Let's see, we can even add this to the screen. What has been the best part of summer so far? We are curious. We'd love to see you comment below. Also, if you want, you can say where you're watching from. Parker gave us a shout out and said he's watching from the couch. That makes sense. I'm technically from the desk. So that's where we are. But we're really glad you guys are here, and we're going to jump in on a game in just a second. So, other thing that we love to do is just see how you're doing. Hit us with an emoji just saying like, hey, here's how my week has been going. If you could describe your week in one emoji, I'm curious what that would be. Mine, it would be probably two. I'm breaking my own rules. I would have the sunglass emoji, and I would have the sleeping emoji, because I have been tired a lot this week. I don't know if it's the Saharan dust cloud or what's going on, but we'll see. So, getting some reports, best part of summers. Getting a chance to relax and sleep, always. I highly recommend that, and summer is perfect for that. Hearing making dinner and watching in my kitchen, See You, Mary Kay. And have loved sitting outside and listening to the birds. Yes, we have had birds all over the place, which has been a lot of fun too. But we're really excited about that. Parker, sunglasses, and popcorn. Fun fact, Joanna my wife has been messing with me a little bit. She has realized I don't like to eat popcorn unless I'm in a movie theater. That is the only time that I eat popcorn. I know that might be weird. I don't like it when it gets in my teeth, but there's something about eating it at a movie theater. I don't know what it is, and I don't know when I'll get to do that again, but that's where we are. And I see the flat mouth emoji. It's a good one. That makes sense. I understand. It has been all sorts of things the last, 4 or 5 months now? Something like that. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy. Favorite thing, going to Percy Priest Lake. Yes, lake time is legit. So, getting a question about butter or no butter. I'm gonna, when I'm at the theater, add a little extra of that butter and a little extra of that popcorn salt. Pro move. Well, I don't know if we'll be able to do this anymore. But I would take a clean straw and put it on the butter thing, and then stick it further into the popcorn so you could get butter on all the layers. That was how you would do it, and it was amazing. Megan, I have not put Milk Duds in my popcorn, but I am not opposed to that. That sounds incredible. M&M's I have had on popcorn, like a trail mix popcorn, but it's when the popcorn's warm. That's when it's amazing. Let's see, Eli, getting sleep and playing video games. Yep, I feel that. Someone just walks into movies, buys popcorn, snacks, and then bounces. I get that, but that is an expensive snack. So that's pretty crazy. We'll see. But yeah, no, I like that though. All right, so as promised, we're gonna play a sweet game. We debuted this game last week, and I don't know if you were here, but if you were, you understand the rules. If not, don't worry, it's easy. Here we go. So we are playing a game called Candy Bar Chopped. Here's how this works. I will show you a cross section, which means we cut the candy bar in half, of a candy bar or a type of candy, and then you have to tell me what candy it is. Now, last week we had some pretty good guessers, so I'm curious how this will go this week. But since we're talking about movie and candy, I think that just ties in perfectly. But someone does not like the milk. Wait, milk dudes? Okay, yeah, you don't want, milk duds. That's what you want. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? So, your goal is to identify the candy, type it in the comments before anybody else. We'll see how that goes. All right, so last week, let's see. All right, I'm going to give you a new one. Here we go. Are you ready? Name this candy. What do you got? This one is a little bit trickier than most, maybe, but I trust you guys. I think you can do it. I see Twix. Twix is not right, but it's a good guess. Milk Duds are great. Yes, it's true. It is not a Twix. Twix has a little bit of that crunchy, right? Rolo is the right answer. That is insane. Let's see. Casey and Megan and Hannah all came in really close right there. I'm going to give the tiebreaker to Megan because it looks like it kind of came in right before her. But that was crazy. All right, are you ready for your next one? This one could be easy or difficult. I don't know. We'll see. And go. What is this candy? See what you got. You'll trade your siblings for Reese's. Reese's are amazing. I'm not mad about it. So, this is good. I'm even getting text messages with guesses. You can't win if you're not putting it in the chat, but that's awesome. All right, what do we got? Nobody's guessed this. It's got a chocolate center. Mary Kay for the win. M&M's. Hannah just right behind. Oh, that was close. Okay, that was awesome. Well done. All right, are you ready? This one, this is a speed round because I think, for me, this is an easy one. We will see. Ready, set, go. This is easily my favorite candy, and now I want some. So that's just how that is. Parker with Reese's. I see you. That's a strong showing right there. Well done. All right, everybody pulling in with Reese's Cup. Yes, this is, I would say this looks like the standard Reese's Cup. Not one of those weird Reese's blobs that they claim are shapes, but aren't really shapes. There's no way that they're shapes, right? It's just not a thing. Okay, let's see. We got some more. Some of these that I have are kind of tricky. So I'm trying to okay, all right, are you ready? Boom. What is this one? This one is also tops on my list. Maybe because I like peanut butter. What you got? What you got? What you got? It's a little bit of a thinker. Kind of a caramelly, kind of a peanutty, really a peanutty. Parker with Payday. There it is. Boom. Gross. Oh, that's awesome. So I have heard this trick that you can get the taste of a payday without a payday by eating candy corn and peanuts. Um, Guys, I've tried it and it's not half bad. I don't know how that is a thing other than it's just sugar and peanuts, which is basically what a payday is. But that's where we are. So, all right, let's see. All right. I'm trying to pick and choose. I got a lot of them, guys. All right, ready, set, go. What could this be? Seems like peanuts is the theme today. That is not my plan. It's just how it's worked out. Yeah. Everybody's kind of crushing this game. You guys are really good with your candies. I am proud of you. Makes me a proud youth pastor. You guys know your candies. Snickers. See you, Eli. That's a win. Yes, this is Snickers. That is correct. Nice. Everybody's in. Okay. Another speed round. See if you can do it. What you got? It's really tricky. There's no way you can actually identify it. It's just one solid color. It's just super tricky. Let's see what you got. Then I think we got a couple more. Then we'll get into our thing for the next. Oh, no. No. Ah. London with Hershey Kisses. I'm realizing that what I see and what you see is not always exactly in the same order if they come in really close together. But on both of them, London was the winner on that one. Well played. All right. Let's see what we got on this next one. Set. Go. Yeah, Megan, I'm not going to just show you the one I accidentally showed you. It's not how this works. She's trying, though. Oh, man. Almond Joy is not right. It's not Mounds. York Patty, I see you. Yeah, York Peppermint Patty for the win. Yeah, that's a hard one, guys. York, a lot of different ways of saying it. I like that. All right, we should do one more. Let's see. All right. This one might be difficult. We'll see. And go. Looks like they had a hard time cutting these. But they look delicious. Would absolutely eat everything we've shown tonight. Can anyone get this one? This is a hard one. Nope. No. Cianrollos, we already did those. Junior Caramel, nope. Mary Kay with the win! Stacy right behind. Or I guess Nathan right behind. Milk Duds is the answer. It was funny because we were just talking about them, and then I hit you with them, and it was tricky. So, ladies and gentlemen, give yourselves a round of applause. That was a really well played round, and I'm really proud of you guys knowing your candies. That's so great. Bravo. Yeah, I guess it does look like caramel, Hannah, so I guess Milk Duds have caramel. I don't know if I ever knew that, but now we know. So, crazy. All right, that was a well-played game, everybody. And now we're going to hang out and learn a little bit about a story about a man who was born blind. Now, that sounds a little weird. Why would we be talking about that? Well, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I want to remind you, we are in the middle of a series talking about what it looks like to follow Jesus with our everyday, ordinary lives. And what does it look like to actually not just be Christians 1 hour a week, but to actually have Jesus as our foundation, and from that, everything else that we do flows out of that. Now, when we do that, that means our lives look differently, and we do different things. And so that's sort of what we're going to be talking about tonight, is we're going to watch what Jesus does in this story, and then we're going to look at how other people react to it. And we're going to kind of do some paralleling between this story and our world right now and what Jesus is calling us to as we follow Jesus. So, the one word we're going to talk about a lot, besides being blind, is humanization. And I am not sure if that's a real word or not, but it is now. Humanization. There you go. So here's the idea. Humanization, as we are going to be talking about it, is the restoring back to being fully human. So there are a lot of things that we've talked about in our community and in our world about dehumanization, which is when you take away the humanness of someone. When you say that they aren't worthy of being human, or they're not acting like they are worthy of being human, any of these type things. So this can happen with individuals, and this can happen with entire groups of people. And so we're going to look at this story and see what Jesus does, because if we pay attention to what Jesus does, one of the things across the board that he is always doing is restoring people to their full humanness. Another way of saying that is he is fully restoring them into who God created them to be, the full image of God bearers that God created them to be. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. If you want to follow along, we're going to be reading John chapter 9. Now, we're going to be reading it and commentating. Let's go with that. Commentating throughout. So we're going to just stick in that chapter. We're going to go through it. There's a lot of things that happen in John chapter 9, but they're all related to this man who was born blind. Are you ready? Here we go. Got to stretch out a little bit. All right. John chapter 9. We find Jesus in an everyday, ordinary situation. You can catch that right at the beginning when it says, as he went along. Everyday, ordinary. Just going about his business. So as Jesus went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, that might feel like a weird question. Why would they blame somebody for somebody being born blind, right? But in those days, their way of understanding things like this was somebody messed up somewhere, because God would not do this otherwise. Now, we can even see that sometimes in our culture, that people are like, well, somebody messed up, that's why they're in this situation. Or somebody screwed up somewhere, and that's why that happened. It's a really easy blame game. And then we blame the other because of that. And that just takes away the humanness between us. And so that's what we keep talking about tonight. So they asked Jesus this question, who sinned? Was it him or his parents that he was born blind? Now, what's interesting is they ask if he sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind. That means, did he sin before he was even born? That's what they're asking. It's a weird question, guys. Now, they were always asking Jesus questions because they wanted to poke at what he was teaching to see if they could find any way to catch him and then be able to put him on trial. So they're always doing this. But Jesus always switches it on them, and it's really awesome. Oftentimes just asking a question or telling a story. But this time it's a little different. So we're going to watch all the characters at play and see how they react to this thing going on. So, chapter 9, he went along, and they asked him, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, he said, but this happened so the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. So, what they are trying to ask is, how did this man end up blind? And they're trying to blame someone for doing something. And what Jesus said is that's not actually what's happening here. This becomes an opportunity for God to do something awesome. And God always uses incredible opportunities for things like that. So God has this opportunity to do something awesome, to restore someone to their fullness of who God created them to be, to humanize them. Because in this culture, if you were blind or lame or any of the things that would not allow you to be in the normal workforce, which were very physical labor things back then you were outcast. You were sent away, often just to sit at the side of the road outside the city and just to beg for money. That was your only option. And oftentimes they weren't counted as real people anymore. They were kicked out of the community. They were kicked out of the city. They were not fully human as far as the culture was concerned. And so this is where Jesus finds this man they are asking him, who sinned. And Jesus said, that's not how this works. This becomes an opportunity for God to do something that God always does, which is restore people to wholeness, to bring restoration, to bring healing in such a way that only God can do. So that's the setup, the question, and then Jesus is like, this opportunity for God. Here we go. Having said this is a cool moment. Jesus spit on the ground. Let's keep going. Made some mud with his saliva and put it on the man's eyes. Don't do that during a pandemic unless you're Jesus. Just side note. But so he spits on the ground, makes some mud, puts it on the guy's eyes. Go, he told them, wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. That's what that word means. So the man went and washed, and he came home seeing. All right, so why was he blind? Who sinned? Who messed up? Jesus says, nope, this is an opportunity for God. And then actually, God does this incredible thing. So Jesus restores his sight through making mud, having him wash, and sight is restored. Okay, you would think, great story. Yay. Nope, not how that plays out. We're just on verse 7. So here we go. Hold on to your hats, guys. This is when it gets interesting. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging at the side asked, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was. Others said, no, he only looks like him. But he himself insisted, I am the man. Now, this is interesting. So let's call our man born blind Frank, because why not? And so Frank is healed. He is restored fully in vision and comes back and he's like, guys, I can see. And they're like, is that Frank? Can Frank see? And they're like, that can't be Frank. Frank's blind. He can't see. And he's like, no, guys, it's me. It's Frank. I can see. And they're like, I don't think so. And they say, how were your eyes open? They asked. And he replied, the man that they called Jesus made some mud, put it on my eyes, and told me to go wash. And so I went and washed, and then I could see. That's pretty straightforward. And then they said, well, where is this man? They asked him. I don't know, he said. Because remember, he went and washed. Now, it's very simple for him to just basically tell what happened. So he is saying, I had an encounter with Jesus, and now I am restored even more in my humanness and created in Godness image type thing. And so he's just telling his like Jesus story of just like, I was this and now this. And so that is a lot of times when we're called on to like share what God's up to. That's all it is like, I was here and now this happened. I was blind and now I see. Or God's like pointed out a new thing for me, or I saw the world differently. Opening your eyes to new things is a lot of times how God is at work. So the man unknowingly shares about Jesus, so much so that everyone's like, oh, we want to meet him. He sounds awesome. So they brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind, Frank. Now, the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Dun, dun, dun. All right, here's what's going on. In the top 10, the 10 Commandments, God puts in there, keep the Sabbath holy. The idea is that this comes from the creation story that on the seventh day God rested. And keeping the Sabbath holy is an acknowledgement that God is in charge and we aren't. If we are willing to actively choose to stop for a day, to stop our work, that is an acknowledgement that it's not just up to us. You see how that works? So it's a big deal. Now, from those top 10, the Jewish faith leaders eventually developed around 600, a little over 600 rules to kind of guard against the top 10 in order to provide clarity, but also say you have something really valuable, you're going to put a fence around it and a fence around it to kind of like keep you from getting too close and messing it up, right? So that's where these laws came in. But sometimes the way that these laws were lived out weren't helpful, and they actually dehumanized as opposed to humanized, which is exactly the opposite of what the 10 Commandments were. The 10 Commandments were essentially, here are the 10 ways that you can fully live out being to your fullest humanity created in God's image as a community. So not just individuals, but as a community, here's how you do this. And so sometimes the way that these were enforced with the extra things added onto it actually removed people's humanity as opposed to restoring people. So one of the things that we see a lot of times is Jesus on the Sabbath, and they're always like, hey, stop that. You're messing up. Because you weren't supposed to do anything at all. You were supposed to cook the night before. You weren't supposed to walk too far. You weren't like nothing. Don't do anything. And so Jesus making mud and healing someone apparently is a no-no. Even though he's restoring someone's value and worth in the community, they're like, oh, we're out. So that's why they pull him in and they're like, this is not good. So now on which the day Jesus had made mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, also asked him how he had received sight. So they're asking Frank again, hey, what happened? And he said, put mud on my eyes, and I washed, and now I see. Once again, very straightforward. Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, talking about Jesus, for he does not keep Sabbath. So, because Jesus didn't keep Sabbath exactly how they thought you should keep Sabbath, Jesus is like dead to them. They're like, nope, he's out. Anything else he does doesn't matter because he didn't keep this one little thing the exact way that we thought that they should. But others asked, well, if he's not from God, how can a sinner perform such signs? And so they were divided. So we have a group who are like immediately dismissing Jesus because he did something against the rules. And then another group's like, but remember that restoring to humanity thing that God's always talking about? That, yeah, he did that. So that's where they're stuck. And so they turn again to the blind man. They go to Frank. What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened. So going straight to the guy. And so Frank says, he is a prophet. And they still did not believe the man had been blind and had received sight until they sent for the man's parents. Okay, pointing this out. Dude was blind, now he's not. First-hand account, right? And they're like not having it. Get his parents. We can't believe this guy. Maybe he's younger. Maybe he just, because he's been an outcast for so long, his voice doesn't matter at all. So they're like, get his parents. So they get his parents. Oh, I got lost. Okay. And they say, is this your son, they asked. Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it now that he can see? And so the parents reply, he is our son, and we know he was born blind, but how he can see now, or who opened his eyes, We don't know. Ask him. He's of age. He will speak for himself. So, they don't trust Frank, the young man or blind man's voice. So they call in the parents. And the parents are like, we don't know what happened. Talk to him. He's old enough. And then, this is interesting. The parents have said this. It says his parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That is why his parents said, he is of age, ask him. So, the system is so corrupt that they will not even own up to their son's story of being blind and no longer being blind because of fear of being kicked out of everything that they know. So they wash their hands of it, of their own son, and try to walk away. The system is so powerful, they try to just walk away from their own son. So then, a second time they summoned the man, Frank, who had been blind, and said, give glory to God and tell the truth, implying that he didn't before. They said, we know that this man, Jesus, is a sinner. So, first off, they just asked him what happened. They didn't like his answer, so they've called him back in, and they're kind of leading the witness, if you will, to say, tell the truth, you know Jesus is bad, right? Right? So you can see this corruptness, right? That even the high up religious officials who were helping lead the system of the community of faith were completely missing the mark here. And so, this is a powerful response that he says back to them. This is what Frank says. Whether or not he is a sinner or not, I do not know. The one thing I do know is I was blind and now I see. What he does here is he doesn't try to speculate or worry about any of the details or worry about fancy wording or feel like he has to know all the religious language to get this right. What he does is he says, look, I don't know who this guy is other than I was blind and now I see, and he did that. Boom. Now, then they asked him, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? Now, you understand, they've heard this already. And so he says, I have already told you, and did you not listen? Which they didn't, obviously. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? So Frank is a little bit still excited about what's going on, and he's getting pandered pretty hard with these questions. And they lean in and they're like, tell us again how this worked out. He's like, look, I already told you. Did you not listen? Are you just really excited to follow Jesus? Is that what's going on, guys? I get it. So they don't like that he said that. And then they yell at him. And here's how it goes down. Then they hurled insults at him and said, you are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. So they're trying to play a hierarchy thing there. But Jesus is God, so oops, kind of missed that one. Anyway, we are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, Jesus, we don't even know where he comes from. So, they are not happy, and they are just blowing up on this dude, Frank. And so Frank answers back. Now, that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes? We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening eyes of a man born blind before. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. Now, they call him out and they're like, hey, this can't be right because we hate Jesus and Jesus is doing good things, but we're not so sure of good things, so we're going to figure out a way to throw that off. We won't even really listen to your story unless you agree with us, and then we will listen to your story. But if your story doesn't agree with what we already believe about Jesus, then we won't even listen to you. And even though we keep trying to lead you a certain way, if you don't follow that path, then we're going to just We're not happy about it. And so Frank replies and he's like, look, here's the deal. You guys have been teaching us that anything like this restoring to humanity, is from God. And the fact that this guy did that says that he's from God. And now you don't believe what you've been teaching because you've already made up your mind and you're unwilling to listen and learn. Frank says that. The guy who has been kicked out of the community and has now been restored to sight because of Jesus calls out the religious leaders on their own stuff. Are you ready for what happens? Because to this they replied, you were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And they threw him out. Okay. They go back to the original question. Who sinned, this man or his parents? The question implies he has always been steeped in sin, and that is why he is blind. It is an assumption. Before anything else, sin is involved, that he has screwed this up. And so as he calls them on their own stuff, they are so upset that they just blow up and they kick him out again, dehumanizing him once more, even though Jesus has restored him to sight, because he would not just go along with what they were telling him and how things work and how the system is. This is just how it is, guys. This is how it's always been. Because he would not do that, they'd kick him out again. Now, it doesn't end there. We've got a few more verses. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. Not good. And went and found him. So Jesus hears that Frank's kicked out again. He's like, whoa. So instead of going to the temple, he goes to Frank first. And he says, do you believe in the Son of Man? And Frank says, who is he, sir? Tell me so that I may believe in him. And Jesus said, you have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you. Then the man said, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. And Jesus said, for judgment I have come into this world so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. So Jesus goes back to Frank and rehumanizes him to another level. They've kicked him out. You know he feels dejected because he didn't do anything that he was like, I didn't do anything wrong. And yet, I'm kicked out again. And Jesus goes back to him and says, no. In fact, you are standing before God right now. The one chosen to restore the world, I am he, and you have now met him in the flesh. Guys, it doesn't get better than that. If you're going to meet Jesus face to face like that, that's a big deal. So the fact that Jesus revealed himself to him as the Savior is a big deal as well, because that doesn't happen a lot in the Gospels, because Jesus knows that's one of the things that will get him in trouble. That is how much Jesus passionately wants to restore Frank. To say, you matter enough that I'm willing to risk everything to say that you are one of mine, that you are one of my beloved children, and that even though the system that is supposed to restore you has broken you, I am here to tell you that you matter. Isn't that awesome? Now, what's interesting is some people follow Jesus and hear this. Duh, of course they do. So then some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, what are we blind to? And Jesus said, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. So a story that sets off with the system telling this one man, because they believe that he is sinful at birth, that he doesn't matter, that he's out. And then Jesus restores him to humanity. And then the entire system continues to fight him and saying they're not enough. The story doesn't matter. We can't even hear him because he doesn't agree with us, and it doesn't go with everything that we think matters. And Jesus continues to push back and says, no, actually, I've come so that the blind can see. And so those that think that they can see are actually blind. This is another way of saying, I have come to comfort the afflicted and to make uncomfortable the comfortable, to push at the systems that are oppressing people and saying that they are not enough, to push at the leadership, including the church, that continue to fall behind their systems as opposed to stand up for those outside the gates. We, as followers of Jesus, are always called to humanize everyone around us, to stand up for those, especially those who are kicked out, oppressed, and told that they are not good enough, maybe by words, maybe by actions, and maybe even by they are not good enough and we can just kill them because they don't matter. Those are the people that Jesus is continually standing up for. The oppressed, the hurting, the broken. That is who we are called to stand up for. As followers of Jesus, that's where Jesus is, and that is where we are called to be. So, we are called to restore humanity to any brokenness that we see in the world. That could be through systems, like systems of racism that are running rampant in our country. We're constantly seeing pushback from the system saying, we don't believe you, we don't hear this, unless you agree with us. And then magically, we like that story. We keep hearing those type things. And yet, the gospel, the following Jesus, the good news is that those who are blind, who are hurting, who are oppressed, will get to see. And then the uncomfortable news is that those who think they have it figured out, those in charge who know how the system works and know what it is doing to people and yet do nothing, those are the ones who are truly blind. And those are the ones whose life is full of sin, not the one kicked out. We're too easy to blame someone because we don't know them. And so that is our call. So our call today, and this is hard, is everything that we do and say, am I bringing a humanness to the person that I'm interacting with? Now that gets hard because there are a lot of hard conversations happening in our world, and it is not easy to do that. Even if you are standing up for the oppressed, it is easy to then push back in such a way that we dehumanize the other. We need to continue to humanize the other in order to bring them along with us. Now, there are systems that are inhumane from the get-go, and we need to destroy the systems and start over. But we cannot dehumanize people in the process along the way, because that's what we're fighting against in the first place. So, may we as followers of Jesus take steps to restoring humanity to all of those, especially those outside the gates that are oppressed, that are hurting. If we do that, that is what following Jesus looks like. And that's what the church should be known for. And so my call to you is let's start doing that and see what happens. Because God is at work all the way, all around us and calling us to this. So let us open our eyes and begin to live this out in the world. Let us pray. God, we ask that you continue to give us the courage and the wisdom and the eyes to see how you see the world and to stand up with you, to restore your image, your fullness of all of those that you have created into your image, bringing the full humanity to them, restoring value to them. May we stand against the systems that are oppressing them and do something to change them. And may you continue to give us the strength as we grow weary and the wisdom to continue to speak into hard conversations, bringing restoration along the way. We lift all of this up in the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, I'm glad you guys are here. That was a lot. I told you. It's just one chapter. And guys, we went way longer than I expected. And sometimes that happens. You just got to play it out. So we're going to jump into Zooms. So if you are in a GroupMe, you have a link to that. If you are not and want to be, make sure to message us and we will hit you up with a link. But I'm so glad you guys were here. Remember, we are starting I forgot the book. We're starting a challenge to dig deeper. So find us on Instagram. We've posted it there. We've also emailed it out too, that we are doing a July book club with a devotional where it's 30-day challenge to dig deeper in our faith in following Jesus. So if you want to be a part of that, go to thevillagenashville.com/youth events. And there is a link there to dig deeper and a little form to fill out. And we would love for you to be a part of that. That starts July 1st. It's coming soon this week. So if you're interested in that, let us know. We'll talk to you guys later. Love you all. Miss you.